right. Aloha and welcome to the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where two dudes halfway across the world go over everything green and gold. I'm Mike, and that's Iowa Joe. And today we're going over the Week 4 loss to the Detroit Lions. And Joe, not getting overly complicated, but that was a wet fart of an effort from the Packers on Thursday night.
Pretty much, but I got to point this out to everybody because everybody's going to be wondering. Mike is sitting in the lobby of a hotel because everybody else is asleep in the room, so that's why he sounds a little bit more subdued right now.
I'm just depressed from the game, that's all. Nah. Ironically, this is one of the few time, maybe on a handful of times where I'll actually be ahead of Joe in terms of time zoning. So I'm actually an hour ahead of Joe. So it is 2 right now for me.
Oh well, but yeah, it was a really, I, it, it's it's like I've said before. It's like this team makes like one big play, and then they take the rest of the game off because they had that one great drive on defense to start with. Rudy Ford got the interception. With as much as we've been kind of bad mouthing Rudy Ford lately, it was good to see him to make the play. And then it just all went downhill after that. Nothing was clicking. Nobody was well outside of, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but outside of certain players, this whole team just kind of like took a shit. And I want to take a moment here because I've been kind of there's a big fight going on Packers Twitter, but I'm going to join it because I think the Packers really need to take a look at their season ticket thing because it was really embarrassing that Lambeau was at least 50% Lions fan, and that doesn't typically happen, or it never used to happen at Lambeau. But I don't know when Lambeau lost its luster, but it's really getting depressing when these visiting teams fans are packing in the crowd more than Packers fans. Now, whether it's, the season ticket thing, whether it's people just getting the season tickets to sell for money, I don't know, but something has to be done because that's gross. I mean, I said it right when the first uh Lions touchdown happened. Amon Ra pretty much ran right to a group of Lions fans and did the leap. And that shouldn't be happening in Lambeau Field. So uh and it just all kind of went downhill from that. So I'm off my soapbox a little bit and that, but yeah, it was just a really crappy game. They did start coming back late, but it just was too little too late for anything.
Yeah, we can get into the woodworks of all of that, but like you said, it's just been really disappointing to see what home games have been on average in terms of, especially when late in the winter. It feels like Lambeau Mystique has kind of gone by the wayside over the past 20 years. A lot of people point to that playoff game against Michael Vick's Falcons after the 2002 season, I think it was, where that was the first time a visiting quarterback had won at Lambeau when they come from like a warmer climate kind of thing and
Yeah,
stuff.
when the temperature's below such a thing and it's snowing out and blah blah blah. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
but yeah, no, it is. You see all the tweets from pregame. Everyone's friends of the podcast, the mainstream media reporters. They're kind of saying like things like, with Detroit being the opponent, there's a lot of blue in the stands, and it is disheartening from just a fan of the team's point of view, because you think Green Bay, you think great fans, what should be a great home field advantage at Lambeau, and it's kind of like, what's going on, dude? Like, what
Well,
what's
even
up
when they
with it?
would pan the crowd with the cameras and you were seeing more blue than green, that was just it's disheartening. And they want to say, oh well, it's the Milwaukee crowd and it was on a Thursday night and it's a 2-hour drive, and that's what you got to deal with. You're not always going to get the games that you want. You're going to get games that they're going to give you. Be glad that you're getting them. I would love to be having the option to get season tickets right now. But, my ass is so far down that list that I'll probably never see it. But, you know, if you're getting the season tickets, You got to take those risks. And if you can't make the game, then find a friend, find a relative. Put it out there. Don't just automatically throw it on Ticketmaster for everybody to buy. I mean, there's Facebook groups. There's I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name on Twitter. Uh
Kyle Kuzno or something like that.
yeah,
I
something
think.
like that, that they specifically try to help people sell their tickets to Packer fans. There's outlets for it. Don't just let I know what a lot of it is, oh well, I can't go, so I'm gonna get as much money out of it as I can. Well, that's why this team, well, not the team. That's why these crowds are becoming more and more visiting fans than they are Packer fans. So I know
Yeah.
probably everybody tuned out after that whole rant, but it needs to be
Well,
said.
yeah, it does. But talking about things that were flaky, let's talk about the poor play calling and game planning that got this game off to a rip roaring start for the offense. So, like you said, like we were discussing off air, looked like it was going to be a great start for the Packers on Thursday night. Defense comes out, gets two good stops on first and second down, and then Rudy Ford makes a play on a ball, jumps a route and gets an interception, returns it, I think, inside the 15. And Green Bay's offense is stuck in reverse after that point. Um, the big news is that Aaron Jones and Christian Watson were back for the game, and you get into that opening series, and um, Jones isn't featured at all, like other than being part of the play action, and it kind of just the first half just spirals from that point
Pretty
on.
much what I said was going to happen is that their normal game plan is only give Aaron Jones 9 carries, so a snap count's going to put him down to like 3 carries. Uh, That was gross too. So yeah, it was good to see him back, but really, what was the point of bringing them back if you're not going to use them? I know Christian was getting some play time. I think he played a little bit more than Aaron did, but still, what's the use of activating him? Or, well, I guess I didn't have to activate him, but what's the point of saying, yeah, he's good to go and only giving him like a couple of plays?
Especially like after a hot turnaround, a quick turnaround kind of situation like that, where, like I said, you're getting the ball inside Detroit's 15, and you're trying to get a big score after a turnover play, and the offense is stuck in reverse at that point. And the first half really just snowballed from that point. I thought this first half of this game was one of LaFleur's worst as the play caller and head coach of the Packers. I thought he was really off kilter, off rhythm, whatever off you want to call it. It was just not a good first half for him. Play sequencing didn't seem to be good. I know that Detroit has a really good run defense, but you got to at least try to run every once in a while. You can't expect Love to be able to just pick an opposing defense apart, especially behind the O line that he's playing behind. I know that we spent a lot of the last couple weeks touting how good of a pass protecting O line Green Bay has, but I mean, you've got 60% of your expected starting lineup on the field on Thursday night, and Zach Tom is playing, hindered, injured, and it just was not a recipe for success, and you saw it. Love was under fire the whole first half, couldn't get in a rhythm, couldn't really set his feet, and it was just asking for all kinds of trouble in the first half.
Yeah, and let's face it, Newman. How many times do we have to have Newman out on the field? He was getting beat so bad. I think he was, who was the quarterback a few years ago that said he was seeing ghosts out on the field, and that was his explanation for bad play.
Darnold, it was
Yeah. Okay, well, friggin' Royce Newman was blocking ghosts half the time with his play. And uh, what do they got to see to take this guy out? I mean, I understand you don't know what you have in Sean Ryan. I understand that your other guys are kind of beat up. I tweeted it during the game or just before the game. I said I know it's not Madden, but I would have easily moved John Runyon to the left guard position, put Tom at right guard, and put Nyman at right tackle. I mean, that would have put your best available offensive lineman on the field. I mean, you could have switched out the Tom at left guard and whatever, but that would have easily put your best guys out on the field. Or the way Newman was getting beat, what was the harm in throwing Sean Ryan out there? He couldn't have done any worse.
Yeah, we've talked enough about Newman. It like, fan the part of the fan base's favorite whipping boy, Josh Myers. He saved Newman from another sack allowed because I think this play was in the third quarter, but he literally blocked a different guy with each arm just to save Newman from giving up another sack. And like you said, uh, our our friend and fan of the show, Jason Perone, we've gone back and forth a little bit, and he's kind of said that, it speaks enough that Sean Ryan can get on the field, so he must just suck, kind of thing. But I said, well, he might. Maybe the team thinks they know that, but we've never seen him play in a game. We've seen Newman play in plenty of games. He ain't getting any better. If anything, he's getting worse than he was when he, was a rookie starting in 2021 and they thought he had a future. So, like you said, I don't see the harm in it. And I know some have said, like, well, what do you do if Ryan isn't any good? I said, well, you have a short leash. You see if he's going to, improve as the games go. And then, I mean, okay, then you have to turn back to Newman. I guess you know what you're getting, but then you got to start signing some street free agents or whatever. You give Michael Jordan a start. Like you said, do something because we know what Royce Newman is, what he isn't, and we know what's going to happen when you keep going to that well. So,
And they
yeah.
love Caleb Jones, so he's on the active roster. So what? I mean, I know he's not a guard, but you could have swapped Tom in at guard and put Caleb Jones at tackle. You got to do something. This is getting ridiculous. I don't know what Michael Jordan has. It feels, as a kid that grew up through the 90s, it feels really weird calling somebody else Michael Jordan. But it just, I know he was the center at Ohio State before Josh Myers. Josh Myers pretty much took over the job after Michael Jordan was out of college. So he's got to, well, I don't, he doesn't have to, but he's got to have some kind of ability to be in the league for the last few years. I know he's bouncing around in that, but there's got to be something they like about him. Throw him at center and put Myers at guard. Do something. But you're going to get your quarterback killed. You're going to get the morale has got to be almost rock bottom at the moment just from that performance. And I know you have it down here on your notes that John Runyon Jr. struggled, but man, he really tweaked his ankle. And you could tell he was just going through the motions the best he could. But you got to do something or start scheming a little bit more with it. Okay. Make your adjustments, short throws, screens. I think even the announcers were kind of saying that towards the end that, there wasn't any throws out to the flat. There weren't any of this. There wasn't any of that. You got to do something to help this guy out. And let's face it, the wide receivers weren't even helping out too much. They weren't getting open. Romeo had the one gaff that caused the interception late. Uh, your guy Torre, had the one catch, but still wasn't doing very well. Christian Watson was doing all right, but it seemed like nobody was getting separation. And this is not a good secondary.
Yeah, it kind of felt like LaFleur fell in the trap of thinking like that Detroit secondary is so banged up, we have to take advantage of it. But he went the wrong way about taking advantage of it because he thought, oh, we can beat them deep, but you can't go deep when you can't block the front, kind of thing. So,
Well, they
yeah,
weren't even doing like play action half the time. They like threw the play action out. And that's the way you slow down a rush is start catching them with play action. Roll out Jordan to the right, roll out Jordan to the left. He's got the ability to do it.
well, and kind of going, like I said, the first half was one of LaFleur's worst called games ever. The second half, it made his first half even look even worse because you saw a lot of the things that you're calling for, rollouts, not so much screens, but just quicker hitting passing game, moving the pocket. I mean, the 2 point the 2 point conversion that worked. It was like a rollout but throwback kind of thing, and throwback to the middle kind of thing. And I said it after they scored the first touchdown and got the 2 point. I said, okay, you could have done all of that in the first half. Why did you wait so long and stuff? And, we won't get into the woodworks of it, but, it does kind of add into the the history with LaFleur where you're kind of like, okay, like, are you always making adjustments as quick as you should on offense and stuff? But like you said, it was just a frustrating night of football. It couldn't have been, I'm sure it looked even worse if you were watching it with steady Wi-Fi. I was on a plane, so I was using $8 paid Wi-Fi on in it from the airliner.
Well,
So
what makes it worse for me is Thursday night is one of my off nights at work. So I got to sit at home and watch the game, and it was my first games getting to watch it at home. And this is the kind of game that they give me is this friggin' shithole. And yeah, I
well, it wasn't all necessarily bad. Yes, it was like 95% bad, but the the light at the end of the tunnel for all Packers fans is, despite all the things that we've been talking about so far on offense, the thing that Packer fans should hold high in their optimism is the fact that despite all of that, Jordan Love didn't blink and didn't really falter under the pressure. His stat line isn't anything that's going to blow you away, but he spent the entire first half on his back. I know that there are some plays that maybe he could have made slightly quicker throws and stuff, but when you're getting knocked around and thrown down every play, you start to, I don't want to say he was seeing ghosts, but you start to question like your decision making and stuff. And it was good that he didn't put the ball in harm's way. I know he had the two interceptions. First one, like he said, the linebacker just made a great play and got his hand on the ball, tipped it in the air, and it was picked off for the interception. And then the second one was just a microcosm of the night where um, Dobbs and Love aren't on the same page. Um, Love thinks that he has Dobbs open, and Dobbs sees that Love is breaking the pocket. So he tries to Dobbs tries to go on a secondary route, and Love throws the original route. So it's just one of those nights where that kind of thing is going to happen. When it rains, it pours. But some of the throws that Love was making in the second half, he was, staring down the barrel and making throws under pressure. And you had to like what you saw. And for all the stat heads, he finally had a completion percentage over 60 for a game. So it's a,
well, and I
it's a,
thought there was a couple of times that maybe he looked a little gun shy, where he was trying to. He thought the pressure wasn't as bad as it had been, and he threw the ball way too quick, and that led to a couple incompletions. But yeah, other than that, he still looked solid. He still looked like he had somewhat of confidence left in him, even after getting hit as many times as he did. So yeah, I'm not gonna blame him for a lot of that. Uh, a lot of the issues.
Yeah, and kind of like we talked about in the Saints game in Week 3, the good thing that you see from Love's demeanor, or he doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, is that as bad as the first half was, he was just kind of level-headed and there. And then in the second half, even as the team started to come back, he wasn't getting like overly hyped about anything. He was just like, hey, there's still rope to climb. Didn't quite get there this week, but I think there's a lot of good that they can build off of from Love's point of view, and I just like the fire that he plays with, even though he doesn't really show it kind of on the field, but you can just tell that there's an intensity between the ears and on the head on his shoulders, that his head's in the game and that he's like you said, it's not perfect, but he's doing his best, and that's like you said, a lot better than a lot of the other guys on this team could say for their Thursday night game.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know what else to really say about it. I know Lafleur was getting all emotional and hyped up and all that during his I didn't even listen to him. I just seen what other people were posting about it. And it's like, yeah, but you're the decision maker, you know? If you don't like what's being done with the defense, you need to step up and have that conversation. You're the one that keeps bringing Barry back. If you're not liking what you're seeing out of players on offense, that's your issue because you're the one that picked the team. So you got to do something, except for giving us all these coach talk cliches and everything. Uh oh,
Okay, all right, we're
that
back.
hotel Wi-Fi.
But yeah, so like you said, um, we won't go super into the weeds on it, but yeah, like you said, it does get tiring for Lafleur to keep going back to the what do you want me to say? It's on me and stuff. It's like do it, like
We got to
it,
get Aaron more touches. We need to execute better. Blah blah. Quit giving us the coach speak.
it's hard when you're the play caller. Like it doesn't work that way. It. I know that he's you have your system and all that kind of stuff, but you're the guy who pushes the buttons, pulls the trigger, whatever adage you want to use, and it's like you said, Joe. This is his team. This is his or his team on his squad on the field, and yes, he's not calling the defensive plays, but he is still the architect, and it's his vision that's supposed to be getting put to work. But you know um this is just his fourth game with, I know that it's his fourth season, but it is his fourth game with Love at the helm. So um just like
Yeah.
we can't write the book on Love, can't write the book on LaFleur with Love, but it was a setback. It was a definite setback in terms of what I thought was a building progression in terms of LaFleur shifting the offensive structure around Love's play as opposed to it being around Aaron's play. So, big place for we're looking for a bounce back coming next week against the Raiders. But I mean, speaking of losing their way play calling, I mean, we keep saying the same thing week in and week out about Joe Barry and his defense, but not defending him at all or anything, but his defense was never meant to be one that you can count on to play from behind or with like a neck and neck game kind of thing. His whole defensive scheme is based on playing with the lead. That said, it was a lot of the same things that we've seen that have popped up about Joe Barry and his defense. Um, no commitment to stopping the run. Um, you kind of touched on it earlier. We can count on less than a full hand the number of guys who played the whole game, like played their heart out the whole game. That was Kenny, Quay, and Rashawn, who is still on a snap. For understandable reasons, he's still on a limited snap count. But other than that, the rest of the defense was just dismal to deplorable in any range of outcomes. And like you said, it's just frustrating because there's talent. There's a lot of talented guys on that defense, but the sum of the parts never seems to, the whole never seems to equal what the sum of the parts should be for that defensive unit.
One, I know those are the guys that seem to play nonstop, but there were, others like Devontae Wyatt seemed like he was doing pretty good. Just, nothing was getting home. Uh, I have to give it to Savage. Savage didn't look horrible. He was at least trying to make plays. I know, was it Razul came out and said that Jared Goff walked up to him
Yeah,
and told him that we specifically designed that play because we knew that eventually you were going to bite on it.
yeah, which that's great game planning by the Lions. And watching it back, yeah, It
It reminds me of the one a few years ago against the Panthers with where you hear Clay Matthews say it's that rollout thing, and Cam Newton goes, "Oh, you watch film, huh? Well, I watch film too." And that's when they score
Yep.
that touchdown. But that also means that you have tendencies that you're putting on film and you're getting to be predictable. So maybe work on a little bit of your predictability. I know it's really good game planning and you can't always do that stuff, but maybe it was getting a little too obvious on some of the stuff you do.
No, and that's what it always gets back to with Barry is that, and it tends to be the case with a lot of coaches, but especially like older defensive coaches, is when the going gets tough, they don't, they cling tighter to their quote unquote defensive identity. And so Barry's is cover four and then like a soft keep everything in front of you cover four. And as much as like Razul, he took responsibility and he said, yeah, I've got to read my keys and I've got to be more play with better integrity. That's the kind of thing you leave yourself open to when you're forever playing off coverage. Is when you see short routes, the whole key of it is that, okay, we're going to play off, but when you see anything short, you have to trigger downhill, and you leave yourself susceptible to double moves in situations like that, because it's especially in that situation where you're in the the outer red zone, you're closer to the 20, you're kind of like, okay, I'm running out of real estate that I can give ground off of, so I've got to start trying to make a play kind of thing. And um so not excusing Razul, but I understand what happened. And especially if, like you said, Joe, if Detroit is keying on his tendencies, yeah, it's I don't want to say it's easy, but one plus one still equals two, and Detroit did a lot of that in this game. And it just goes back to a lot of the same things that we've been talking about with this defense, where there's so much like athletic or physical talent, but the willingness or the ability to do the things that are necessary to get a functioning defense on the field, they just don't do it on a week to week basis.
And what makes it even more disheartening, I guess is the word you could say for it, is that when he would run man coverage scheme, it was succeeding.
The
But
only play
then,
it, yeah, the play it, didn't work on was the play before the Amin Ra touchdown, is where they had it covered perfectly. Razul had, I thought, really good coverage on your boy Sam Laporta, and Goff just makes a perfect throw, and there's nothing
yeah,
Razul can do on that play.
no, because Laporta's just got too much size on Zool.
Yeah,
I pointed that out on Twitter and all that. There was nothing he could do, and what I think, and it's hard to say, but with as athletic as Quay is, he probably could have did a little bit better than Razul in that situation. But I don't think anybody was going to do anything about it.
no, that was a case of perfect throw, perfect route. And like you said, I do think Razul can be used to cover certain tight ends, but Laporta is in that like Kittle mode. I'm not just saying that because they both went to Iowa, but where they're both big and fast kind of thing. It's not just one or the other. He's not just a big guy or just a fast guy kind of thing. So it's like you said, it was just too much for Azul to kind of cover even though he's a bigger corner, it is still a mismatch. But yeah, it's we could spend an hour, we could spend 5 minutes covering what happened on defense. It was just more of the same. And then even they were giving the offense chances in the second half. They got some stops as Green Bay's offense was kind of getting it back into gear. But it did feel like when the second 2-point conversion attempt failed, the wind just went out of the defense's sails and stuff, and you could kind of just feel that they were going to give up some kind of a drive after they had Green Bay had the chance to close it to 27-19, and then they don't get the 2-pointer, so it's 27-17, and you just felt like, oh, here comes a scoring drive coming for Detroit at that point.
And it See, I've been having to deal with this with the Iowa football team. If the offense can't sustain drives and the defense has to keep going out, they're going to eventually wear down to where they're not going to be able to make stops. Yeah, they were making stops later in the game, but when you're tired, you're tired. That's where the offense needs to step up and do their job. You don't have to necessarily score. It's always nice to score, but at least have a sustained drive. Don't just go three and outs. Get a couple first downs. Let the defense have some breathers. But they weren't. And it was getting worse and worse. Now, when they started having sustained drives, the defense was getting rest. They were making stops. Come on, this is common sense. It's 2 plus 2 is 4.
Yeah, I mean, when your only first down in the first half is because of a offsides penalty on the defense, you know that it's a bad night for both sides of the ball. So, um, the the you know, like I said, there's not much that needs to be said about the defense. And then, like you said, it's hard to dish on them too hard for the first half because they were put with their pants around their ankles by the offense, because the offense, I think they went, 3 and out or whatever, 5 drives in a row or something like that. So, like you said, they left them completely unguarded, and they left them hanging for the whole first 30 minutes of the game. So while it's frustrating to just see the defense be a sieve in certain aspects of the game, at the same time, like you said, Joe, they weren't getting any support from their offense, and it's just hard to play one-sided game, especially when that one side is defense and you're not getting any assistance from the other side of the ball.
Yeah, and I guess it's also they were hurting. Jair needs to be back out there. I understand the whole back situation. We keep talking about this. We both have back issues. We know how it is. We know what's going. But you can tell that this defense is missing him. It looked like they took Carrington Valentine out, so I don't know if for a bit. So I don't know if that was injury related. I don't know if that was because he was playing poorly. I don't know what that situation was. Uh, it was obvious they were kind of missing Devondre. Even though I think Mick Duffy is a solid backup, and he's played well. He's got speed. He's got coverage ability. I don't think he's going to be a full time starter, but he's a good rotational backup type guy. But it was pretty obvious that Devondre is the you know uh, play caller, you know adjustments maker, stuff like that on this defense, and it was kind of obvious that they were missing him for a bit. So that sucks. And then we keep pointing to this. It's just like the Newman thing. Why Anthony Johnson Jr. is not getting activated is beyond me.
Yeah,
I
and like I know that it sounds like a squeaky wheel this week because Rudy Ford made a play on defense, but I mean, like you said, especially with Jair out and you're calling up practice squad guys and all that kind of stuff, like are you doing the youth movement or are you not? Like that's what what is the mission of this season? Like that's the part where, because I think we both are in the same boat where if you say that, hey, the goals for this season are to find out what the young players on this team are, figure out what Jordan Love is, figure out who the guys are to keep moving forward. I don't I don't want to say I don't care what their record is, but I'm willing to live with the up and downs of playing a lot of first and second year players because you're just seeing what you got. But when you're giving bulk reps to guys who are probably not on the roster or at least not playing that position a year or two in the future, like you said, I don't know what you're doing there, and it's just frustrating, irritating, to see guys who, you know, I don't like saying this, but who don't have a future on this roster taking snaps from guys who, like kind of like we said about Sean Ryan, we don't know if he's any good or if Anthony Johnson Jr. is any good, but he can't be any worse than the guys who have been playing bulk snaps to this point, kind of thing. And
Exactly.
yeah, and okay, like okay, there's a little bit more of um a backing to playing Newman, because it's like you can argue, oh, Ryan's not ready as a pass protector, and while Newman has a lot of shortcomings, we trust him too, even though you shouldn't. We trust him. We don't want Love getting hurt, kind of thing. With Anthony Johnson, it's like, okay, he might give up a bomb. Okay, that's teaching tape. And you just have a short lease. Like if he does it 2 times in a game, okay, you're benched. But
And they're already giving up bombs. So
yeah,
what the
yeah.
hell's the difference?
Right. And that's the other side of it, is like, so what's like I said, that's where I get more frustrated on the defensive side. It's like, so if you're worried about giving up big plays or not stopping opposing offenses, but you're already struggling to do that, what's the deal? Like,
Right.
yeah, the math
And you
ain't
can't say
mathing.
it's not the special teams play because he was doing really good on special teams in the preseason.
And in all honesty, like, so, specialty, another unit that isn't as glaringly disappointing, but I mean, the high watermark on special teams is the fact that Carlson is still perfect, which, no, I don't want to undersell that at all. That is still huge, even in a game where, he only kicked one time, still drilled his lone field goal of the night. You like to see that. But you kind of do still question the coaching on that side. I think I saw you tweeted, a couple other people tweeted. It's like, Bisaccia is your associate head coach, and you're having penalties. You holding calls, blocking the back calls, whatever kind of thing on returns and stuff, and then the Quay penalty. It's I I don't. Okay, I'm not saying that you just say, oh, it's fine because he was playing hard, but on one hand, yes, it's a dumb penalty that Quick picked up trying to jump and block the field goal, but I can't get on a guy who was, like we said, one of the few guys that definitively was playing his heart out all night. Did he make mistakes? Sure. Was the field goal penalty the last and biggest one? Absolutely. But I don't put that on the player when the average level of intensity and effort seemed lackluster, and he was one of the few that you could point to and be like, that guy cared. That guy was trying all night. And
And I get it's the Cam Chancellor rule anymore, but is it he can't be beyond 1 yard, or 1 yard is like it?
yeah, you can't be beyond what, so like you can't. And honestly, I've seen it. I When I was watching it, I was like, wait, what did they call? Like, I, I was confused as to exactly what they called. And yeah, I guess it is that you can't have a running start, because at first I was thinking like, he didn't actually land on anyone. I don't think the ref explained it well. It was more, Quay gave a better explanation in his pool report, his media report, availability after the game than the ref did. I didn't feel like the ref explained it good in the time at the time during the game. But yeah, it
Well,
is
and this could be biased or something, but I didn't think he was that far back when he
right.
went.
And that's one of those where I I hate those kind of rules, because it's like, it's one of those judgment ones, and it's always left under interpretation. It's just like illegal linemen downfield on an RPO. Where is the one? Are you gonna call it every time exactly when they pass 1 yard? No, they don't. The field goal one, and play on that
But
one.
remember, it's okay to throw a towel at the ball when when it gets kicked.
Yeah. So I know it's
Next
all
time, throw
rules,
your helmet at it.
seriously. But yeah, every we could go all night in terms of the openness of certain NFL rulebook uh, appendixes and stuff like that. But it's one of those ones where it's a judgment call, and I get that there's two refs that are like looking, but also I'm like, yeah, like you said, it's one of those. It's letter of the law, but I don't think it's the spirit of the rule. It's that kind of distinction on that one. Maybe we're looking at it through green and gold, you know, tinted lenses, but like I said, when I was watching it on my phone in the airport on my layover, I was like, wait, what? Like he what did he do? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and like I said, it didn't seem like he was that far back to me, but again, I don't know. I was by that time I was already way too frustrated with that game. So,
yeah.
but while we're talking special teams, I have to give uh Anders credit. That onside kick was pretty damn good.
Yes, it was.
And I honestly thought it was going to get recovered.
Yep.
I don't know why. I don't remember who was the first one to the ball, but he honestly could have made the play on it.
Yep. And I don't know if that player like got psyched out because they weren't sure exactly where they were, if they were too early to touch it, kind of thing, just trying to make sure they were at 10 yards and stuff like that. But that, like you said, that was a beautiful onside kick
Yeah, and
attempt.
he did it different than I've seen it before. He like lined the ball up like he would on a normal kick and then laid it down. And I know I've seen guys who have laid it down and then kicked the end of it to, get it to spin. Or Mason used to keep it propped up and then kick off the top of it.
Yep.
But he like laid the ball flat, but with the point towards him and
Yeah.
then kicked under it.
Yeah, like you said, most guys when they put it flat on like the ball on its side, it's like parallel with the yard markers kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's like pointed towards the sideline, not pointed at the goalpost, basically. So yeah, it was one of those where you're kind of like, oh, like what is like. Obviously, he's setting up for an onside because of the game situation, but it's one of those where, like you said, I've never seen that before, and so yeah, I was like, I don't even know where, like, forget how he's gonna kick it. I didn't even know where he was trying to kick,
Yeah.
like not where on the ball, but where he wanted the ball to go after he kicked it, kind of thing. Because like you said, when you put it on its side and it's parallel with the yard lines, you're kicking it on one end so it corkscrews out, kind of thing and stuff. Or like you said with Mason, he was the what we I think we all kind of got used to, where you top the ball and you get it to pop high in
Yeah.
the air, kind of thing and stuff. But yeah, so yeah, like as frustrating as it is, I use that word a lot with this game, but that's what this game was. When you spin your wheels in the mud for a whole half and let your opponent go up 24 points on you, every phase failed you in some regard. But as much as the special teams returns haven't done much or have gotten penalty called or gave up the punt return against the Saints last week, you can't undersell the work that Bisaccia has done so far with Carlson, because I don't know anyone who liked that pick at the time it was made. And Carlson has made it look like a genius pick. Granted, yes, I know it's only 4 games in, but he's been nailing his kicks so far this season. And like you said, he looks like he's got some tricks up his sleeve for the onside opportunities. So, I mean, um, like I said, we're looking for this is a game that leaves you looking for bright spots. And Anders Carlson is still top 5, 3 on the list of things to be pleased about coming out of this game. So, I mean, that's great for Anders, not so great for the Packers this week.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
But, I mean, is it too much to say that perhaps this week, Joe Carlson at least got honorable mention as your MVP? Who is your MVP for this week?
I've been sitting here trying to think of it this whole time. Uh and I really don't know because all of it was kind of trash in a way. I mean, I you could go Jordan because at least Jordan was putting up uh some kind of, he was still looking confident and was still trying to make the plays and everything. I could say Jaden Reed because of his one late catch. Uh I I'd like to go Quay because outside of the penalty, he was like nonstop. I I think he had over 13 tackles just himself.
Yeah, I don't know how many solo ones he ended up with, but I believe he ended up with 19 total. So
Yeah. So I think just for the hell of it, I'm just gonna go Quay. I know he had the penalty, but nothing is you can't always be perfect.
yeah, he at least went down guns blazing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
and like I said, I'm not that's the kind where you go into the film review the next week, you say, "Hey, like this can't be happening." But in a game where nothing was going right, I'm not going to rip a guy who went down blasting even
Yeah.
as nothing else was working. And going into the Quay angle, I've seen some clips of people saying like, "Oh, like what's he doing on this play? What's he doing on that play?" Look, I'm not here to tell you that Quay was right and people who are saying that he's in the wrong for doing certain things on any given play, but unless you're gonna clip every play he did or didn't make in a game, that those kind of reviews are so serving to me when I see some of those kind of things. But it's because it's like I can pick any three plays from a game on any three players. I could pick three plays to make Newman look like an All-Pro guard.
Yeah,
I'm
no
just gonna tell
kidding.
you. I'm just gonna tell you. Don't look at any of the other whatever 50 plays he played on a game, kind of thing.
Right, and it was a penalty during the game. At least it wasn't him shoving a ref or
Right?
shoving a trainer or shoving a coach or knocking somebody's head off or whatever. It was just
Yeah.
a stupid penalty based on a stupid rule that coaching should have taught him a little bit better on.
Yeah. So that's a good one. Like you said, there aren't many options. I'm gonna go with the low hanging fruit. I'm gonna say that MVP for this game was my MVP for this game was Jordan Love. Just because at the end of the day, all I care about is finding out what the Packers have in Love. And in a game where his O line couldn't protect him, his play calling wasn't helping him at all in the first half. Nobody was getting open. A couple different people were tweeting like, "This feels like those games where like Aikman or Collinsworth or whoever would be like, show me who's open. Here's the picture. Like here's the play as
Yeah.
it's developing. Where is he throwing with the ball, kind of thing and stuff." And um, you don't want to see a lot of those for Love early on, but like I said, the second half, even the first half, you never saw him like just turtle completely. Obviously, he's going to have some plays, like you said, Joe, where he's going to look gun shy, and I mean, you go stand out there with four guys who want to rip your head off coming at you and tell me that if the five guys who are supposed to stop him in front of you aren't, you're not gonna have a little bit of a cold shoulder at a moment to
Right.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but like he had that play where he I think it was fourth down and he's got Hutchinson bearing down on him from the A gap and he hits Dobbs at the 3 yard line. Um Plays like that where it's like, yep, we want to see more consistency. And like I said, hey, that's another bright spot. He was finally over 60% completion percentage. Um, and because the highlight plays that he puts out there are great. And there's a lot of guys who have highlight plays but never made it. And so that's where, like you said too, before the season started, Joe, he just needs to keep building on those highlight plays, but also to kind of, I don't want to say backfill, but to shorten the gap between like the just nothing plays and, that he starts to continue to limit the nothing plays and while keep making the highlight plays. And as much as we're kind of like joking, tongue in cheeking, the like him being over 60%, it is a big thing for him where he's been in the mid to low 50s each of the first 3 weeks. So
And a lot
that's
of
one of
it's
those.
not even his fault. I mean,
Exactly.
if you go back and look at the drops and everything, a lot of it's not even his fault.
Yeah. So like I said, my whole thing is that he's just continuing to plug away. And it's week 4 going into week 5. And we don't know if he's going to be great, but he's not sucking and he's not going
Right.
to be a bust kind of thing. So we've answered that question. Joe, can you thin your list down to your least valuable person or
Oh,
player?
I don't
Or
think it's any kind of surprise on who I would pick for the LVP. There is no if I had the clip right now, I would play it, and I'm not even a Jerry Seinfeld fan. It's Newman, Royce Newman. I he's I don't
the
even know if
picture,
he's a
the
good guy.
pic, the pictures
What?
he must have, the pictures he
I
must have.
well, I was gonna say I don't even know if he's a good guy or not because I don't know anything about him. I've never met him. I never, I don't see. But he's a horrible player. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what it is that they keep saying, "Oh, we're just gonna keep trotting him out there." No, there's no reason to do that. It because it's not working. I understand Bakhtiari is now out for the season. Uh, Jenkins is down for a bit. They're not figuring it's going to be long term, so I'm thinking he'll be back. Raiders game. Uh, you've got Sean Ryan. You've got options there. You might as well use them because this guy is definitely not it. And unless somebody absolutely shits the bed, and if they keep trotting this guy out there, I think this guy's going to be my LVP for like the rest of the season.
No, like it's hard to top or bottom that one. Yeah, like we said earlier, we know that this staff tends to lean on experienced players and all that kind of stuff, but when the experience is bad all the time, why keep going back to that well? Like there's not much to say there. um but my LVP for this week is going to be LaFleur. We were, like you said, we've touted him through the first few games. We touted him, the first few years he was in Green Bay, where he had revitalized the Packers. They had come out of the last few years of McCarthy and all that kind of stuff. But we're gonna give him his flowers. We also have to grade him tough when it's a bad game. And like I said, that first half was probably the worst half I've seen him call as the head coach of the Packers. Just game plan wise. And then even just with each subsequent drive, like you said, the commentators were saying it, everyone on Twitter was saying it, is what are we trying to do here? And like I said, the fact that they did make adjustments at halftime that were sweeping, big, huge adjustments to the game plan, it was like, why didn't you do that? Forget like the first couple of drives. Why didn't you at least do that in the second quarter, kind of thing and stuff? Like, you know, use the end of the quarter media timeout, get on the bench with Jordan. You got to be able to see that no one can block anyone. Like, you know,
No kidding.
yeah, like, yeah. So, like I said, um, you got the guy in between the white lines. I got the guy on the sideline this week. So,
Well, and like you said, there's no doubt about it. You could pick like a handful of people to be an LVP this week, but I I don't know. I'm hoping something changes. Who do we got this week? It's Oakland or not Oakland, Vegas,
the Raiders, yep.
and yeah, so and they're not a very good team, but
It's weird. So we'll get into this in our preview, but um, they're like, they have Josh Jacobs, who's a great running back, but they're like the worst by EP. Their advanced statistics have them as the worst rushing team. And just to put it in perspective, the Chargers, with their forever bad run defense, held Josh Jacobs to like 3 yards per carry. So I made the joke on Twitter today. I was like, which trend is going to break? Are the Packers actually going to have a good defensive game against what is a good running back, or is Green Bay going to continue to be the breath of fresh air for a foundering opposing offense and stuff? But like I said, we'll save that more for our preview show. But just kind of setting the table for what's to come on Monday night. But yeah, it's. I mean, we've this pod is a few days after the game because it was a Thursday night game. We're giving this thing one last sniff test before we toss it in the trash and move on to week 5. But man, this one was a rough one to not just watch but kind of recap as well.
Yeah, I'm I almost blocked it completely out of my memory until we had to come and record this.
But until we have our preview show, we just want to say thank you, mahalo, for joining us for this week's Packers Edition podcast. Um, I'm again, please follow us on Twitter at Kawano Mike, and Joe is at Iowa_Joe86. The show is on Twitter at Ohana_Packers. Um, New episodes are dropping every Tuesday and Thursday. Please give us a subscribe, give us some likes if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show. Also, we will and do read reviews, so please leave any if you have anything, any tips, suggestions, or just pats on the backs for us. Please, we're looking for those at any turn. But like we said, just like the team needs to, it's time for us to turn the page on week 4 and move on to week 5. Um, Packers are heading to the ninth aisle, on to Vegas. Go back, go, and aloha.